So today we got a double feature on the Blockbusters Show. Today we've got two talking dog movies, and one's more big budget and the other is straight to video. Today we're going to be starting with Marmaduke from 2010.
Try being a 200-pound teenage dog in a radar dish.
With the help of his best feline friend, a lovable Great Dane named Marmaduke, played by Owen Wilson, helps his family, Lee Pace and Judy Greer, adjust to their new lives in Orange County, California. Although he is loving life and living large in the OC, he is discovering that flirting in with his new pals at the dog park will not always be easy. The movie starts up in Kansas and we see this little middle-class family with Lee Pace as the dad, Judy Greer as the mom, their teenage daughter, her little brother, their pet dog Marmaduke, which is this big Great Dane played by Owen Wilson, and their pet cat Carlos played by George Lopez. Lee Pace works for this dog food company and his boss is William H. Macy. And he was in like a bunch of serious movies before this, and then he ends up playing the goofy boss who has a bunch of kick to the nut shots in this movie.
You okay? It takes a lot more than that.
So they're moved to California through montage with the Tupac California Love song playing in the background. And the last thing I expected Marmaduke to be, it turns into a teen movie. Because Marmaduke goes to this dog park where there's a bunch of different cliques like you'd see in a high school movie. You know, you got the jocks, you got the popular girls, the emos, the nerds, what have you. And the popular girl in school who Marmaduke is just crazy about, who's going out with this just absolute douchebag dog who is played by Kiefer Sutherland of all people. And of course Marmaduke befriends like this small little ragtag team of dogs, one of which is played by Emma Stone, and you know, they become very good friends, and you know that eventually they're going to end up together. And of course Emma Stone dog has a thing for Marmaduke, so then you know it's going to turn out that, oh, my one true love was actually my best friend the whole time. It goes down that like cliche teenage high school movie plot, and the fact they put this in a movie based on a comic strip of a dog just like causing messes around the house. Speaking of cliches, this movie goes down the route of Lee Pace is one of those dads where he doesn't spend enough time with his family and he's, you know, off working too much, and then Judy Greer as the wife just goes, you know, you spend way too much time at work. Why don't you spend time with the kids or the family? I know I said this about Tooth Fairy 2, but this is a cliche soup. The best thing that happened in this movie is they have this whole subplot about this big scary dog that comes out at night whenever it's thundering out, and he's called Chupadogra. That's one of many puns in the movie, by the way. And he's played by Sam Elliott, and at one point, you know, when Marmaduke's at his lowest point, he talks to Chupadogra, and, oh, he's not scary at all. He's actually misunderstood. He has a whole backstory about how he ran away from his family, and his life just went down the tubes from there. And honestly, maybe it's just because Sam Elliott is a damn good actor, but that part of the movie was actually kind of, it actually had something to offer. It wasn't just your typical cliche, look, teenage movie tropes, but with dogs. And like I said, the cast, they got like a bunch of like recognizable actors in this, and they're doing voices for half live action, half CG dogs in Marmaduke. Just like Gulliver's Travels, the production itself is actually pretty decent. Most of the time the CG is pretty good, but then there's parts where it's like, okay, that looks bad. Like specifically the part where Marmaduke goes surfing, that whole sequence looks like something, it looks like a cutscene in a PS3 game.
Happy thoughts. I'm running through a meadow. I'm peeing on everything.
So the third act of the movie has Marmaduke become popular because he makes up a whole story about, you know, chasing off cats, and he convinces Carlos to go along with his charade as he makes it look like he, you know, chases cats all the time. And Carlos says he's no longer his friend, and he ends up having this big house party when the family is out, the family comes back, the house is a wreck. Marmaduke is put outside for the night, he ends up wandering off, that's when the Chupadogra thing happens. The next day, Marmaduke finally gets his head out of his butt, and then there's an earthquake, and just as it seems that Marmaduke and Emma Stone are done for, confessing their love for one another, Marmaduke's owners come and save the day. Lee Pace is seen as a hero by William H. Macy, who gives him his job back and says he can help bring life to the company again. Marmaduke rekindles his relationships with everybody, and he finally gets respect amongst all the other dogs by just being himself. The movie ends with a bunch of CG dogs dancing to What I Like About You, because Shrek made the whole movie ending with dance party thing popular. I would rank this movie on par with Gulliver's Travels just because it's a harmless movie. It's not the worst thing ever, but it's just a generic family movie that people are ultimately going to forget about, and you're going to see it years later in a bargain bin at Walmart and be like, oh yeah, that movie existed. It's Fox going, hey, we got a bunch of popular stuff that the kids are going to like. We got all these big named actors so that the adults seem to like it, and we have all the stupid fart jokes and stuff that you come to expect.
Wait for it.
Marmaduke, what did you eat?
Not the worst movie ever, but just incredibly bland and forgettable. And then we get to the other talking dog movie of the video, Quigley.
It's quite a dog you've got there.
Thank you.
Quigley.
This is the second movie starring Gary Busey that we've done for the Blockbusters Show. The first one we briefly talked about Ginger Dead Man for the 11 Movies 1 Review October episode.
Kitty.
Quigley's IMDb description is one sentence. It just says, a despicable person is reincarnated as a dog in order to atone for his life's big mistakes. So basically the plot of this one is Gary Busey is a greedy businessman, barely spends time with his family, he hates dogs, and he ends up in a car accident, and he ends up in a near-death experience where he's now in heaven, and in heaven they give him a second chance by saying that he can redeem himself, and he's reincarnated into a Pomeranian. And so now he's got to do a bunch of good deeds to help prove himself so he can become a human again. In other words, it's kind of like that Shaggy Dog movie from 2006 with Tim Allen, except it stars Gary Busey and has very light religious undertones to it.
You cannot earn your way into heaven by doing good deeds, Archie.
My favorite thing is whenever they're in heaven, it's just in front of a white backdrop, like sheets hung up like a white backdrop. They put a couple of sheets on furniture, and they have a bunch of people standing around in white robes, and those are supposed to be angels. Throughout the movie, it kind of fluctuates between Gary Busey being a talking dog, like just with voiceover, and there's parts where he actually is on screen, and he's interacting with his guardian angel, who's there to, you know, keep an eye on him, and he's played by Oz Perkins. And he has this weird running gag all throughout the movie, like halfway through, where he just keeps falling over. That's the joke. He just keeps running and then falling flat on his face into dirt. So the good deeds that Gary Busey as Quigley does includes pushing a girl out of the way before she's hit by a car. He ends up hooking up his boss with his secretary, and they end up going on a date. His boss, by the way, is played by Curtis Armstrong, Timothy Busfield in Skateboard Kid, and now this. And Curtis Armstrong looks like he was happy because he got a paycheck. And the last good deed is Gary Busey helps out his brother, who is like temporarily filling in as like the father figure for his family as he's put in the hospital. And he's a UPS driver who also develops video games on the side. And he makes games for knockoff PlayStation, Nintendo 64. The game that he made, when they show it, it looks like one of those games from the CDI that Busey's wife's like, wow, Gary Busey's brother, you're really talented. Yeah, but I can't think of anyone who would want to fund my video games. And so Quigley, Gary Busey as the dog, gets a copy of the game off of the desk, runs off to the company, goes to Curtis Armstrong, and here's where everyone comes face to face with each other. Armstrong's like, wow, your game is great. Wow, thank you. Yeah, I'll give you funding for it. So basically all the good deeds have been done. And the movie just goes through all these different like little subplots until eventually it all wraps up together. Gary Busey has done enough good deeds. He is brought back to Earth as a human, and he's now a better man. And the movie ends with Gary Busey giving an emotional speech where he finally learned how to be a better person.
I just came out of a never-ending nightmare.
Quigley is one of the funnier So Bad It's Good movies we've done in a while. It's a lot funnier than Skateboard Kid. It's a lot funnier than Theodore Rex or Harry and the Hendersons. It has that kind of charm that Flying Ryan had, where it looks like a project made by a bunch of fifth graders. All the actors in the movie are trying. They're not really good, but they're trying. And Gary Busey, he's just pulling a lot of Gary Buseyisms all throughout the movie. And like, you can't tell like if something was a genuine flub or if it was written in the script. And yeah, honestly, that was probably the most entertaining part of the whole film. In comparison to Marmaduke, which had a way bigger budget but was just completely forgettable, Quigley is straight-to-video trash if you're into the whole So Bad It's Good scene. If you love movies like Flying Ryan or Cool Cat Saves the Kids or Amazing Bulk, you're definitely going to get a kick out of this movie. Did somebody say Gary Busey is a talking dog? Oh, well, Adam, you know what this means? It means we gotta make that feature film we kept talking about, If I'm Walking, I'm Hopping. We gotta do it, man. Christopher Walken as a CG kangaroo. Oh my god, Wiz, for the last time, that is not going to work as a movie. Come on, just tell me that it's not a good idea. Christopher Walken is reincarnated as a kangaroo and learns to be a better father and husband. Tell me it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work.